real estate is local. It really is. So one thing, when you look at all of these sort of big stats about money and cost of money and home ownership, length of home ownership is a perfect example. You really have to know your area. As a realtor, you've got to know your area, because it's like, I've heard a bunch of people say it's like a national weather forecast. You couldn't say like, oh, well, the weather today in the nation is X. It wouldn't make any sense.
So the big question is this: how do most agents who don't have access to the secrets that the top agents in our industry hoard to themselves grow and prosper in today's real estate environment? That's the question. And this video podcast is the answer. I'm Pat Hyben, and welcome to Real Estate Rockstars.
Hello again, Real Estate Rockstars. This is Aaron Amuchastegui back with my friend Paul Morris today to talk more state of the market and real estate news. Paul, how's it going, man?
Good, man. How you doing?
I'm doing well. I'm glad we were able to connect today to get to chat. But but really, I mean, just to start off, there were some really cool podcasts that you recently did some interviews on. You had a film crew out there. They're gonna be great for our YouTube page and some of those other things. Tell me, it looked like some pretty fun stuff. Tell the people that haven't heard those. And one of them just published a couple days ago. One of them's coming this coming Friday. What was that like? Who were you interviewing?
So the first one was with Jeffrey Sod, and Jeffrey Sod has an incredible career as a realtor, but he started out on the Food Network. So he was a Food Network star, obviously very charismatic, great on screen. One of the things I love about him is he moved to a totally new place. He moved from San Francisco to LA, not knowing anybody, and he built his business from $0 to $1 million in net, not GCI, but $1 million net in 6 years. So he talks about the whole ramp up from basically, from zero to total rock star. Really great.
Yeah, it totally makes sense. That guy was on the Food Network on video. He was awesome. I mean, if you guys haven't gone and seen it yet, or you haven't gone and checked out the YouTube page yet, this would be one of the first ones to do it. That you'll be like, wow, it looked like a ton of fun they had, and lots of great info in there.
Yeah. I didn't need acting lessons. I just tried to do what Jeffrey did, and it was all good.
Just mirror the, well, that is awesome. So I am, like I said, I had so much fun listening to those and seeing them, and I can't wait for more people to get to see them on the YouTube page. But I wanted to be able to meet with you so we could talk news like we have been our last few weeks. And first, I wanted to start with one we have talked about kind of several times. When me and Pat Hyben, last month we were talking about this. I think maybe you and I talked about it a little bit a couple weeks ago. But there's been a whole lot of stuff in the news about pocket listings and the pocket listing bans and the last month the Realtor Association said, hey, they're going to make it illegal anywhere. So this article, Inman, on February 4th says, Bright MLS, no fines issued as pocket listing ban kicks in. So this is the Mid-Atlantic group. So back before even all the realtors voted that they were going to do this, I think it's back in October, November, the article says they said they were going to make it illegal to do pocket listings, which really means if you offer, if you say, hey, you can buy this house for $100,000, you have to put it on the MLS within 24 hours or they're going to fine you $5,000. Now, everybody was super stressed out about that. It's going to change the world. There's so many, wholesalers out there is going to totally change their business plan. But the law came into effect now for them, just a few days ago. And they said that, since it started, nobody's violated. Nobody's actually had to been fined $5,000. What do you think about the pocket listing ban? What do you think it's going to do to all these, wholesale companies and things like that?
I think that, well, first of all, when they said, no fines issued, I was like, wow, does that mean they're not enforcing it? But actually it had.
Yeah, right. That's a good question.
Yeah, it had exactly the opposite effect. And that is that people just stopped doing it. They did not want to be hit with that $5,000 fine. So it just goes to show you what a little bit of government regulation can do, really changing the landscape of a market. First and foremost, I think that, the idea behind it is quite good because we want to make sure that people are getting a fair shake on their house. So, the idea of, hey, we'll just, we'll quietly list it. It gives some realtors the opportunity to double end it, which takes the opportunity away from lots of other realtors, number one. And number two, it really can negatively affect buyers and sellers. So I think all in all, pretty good policy. Now, in terms of the wholesalers, I see a lot of folks going direct to homeowners on that sort of thing. So I don't know that the pocket listing is really going to negatively affect them in the long run. I think you'll see a pivot from them. That's my view. What do you think on that?
Yeah, one of the easy workarounds I was thinking was you just can't be a real estate agent, right? Yeah. So if you're yeah, that's the thing. Like, I'm an investor. I'm not an agent. Like, I love what agents do and what realtors do out there. Yeah. But there's some added kind of flexibility you get. So I think that's just the ultimate loophole. If somebody really wants to be a wholesaler, then they can't be a real licensed agent using the MLS.
Yeah. Okay. Right. So you're thinking, right. You're really thinking practicality of it. And I think that is a good point. We'll see how that plays out. That would be awfully rough if we saw that. I don't see that happening on a wide swath, but interesting point for sure. Really.
I mean, I think it's a great law. I mean, I think that overall the pocket listings, it's not the best way to represent your client. And of course there's exceptions to it, and there's some people that are so good at doing it that maybe it's going to make the price go up even more. Yeah. But it's that supply and demand. When everybody sees it out there, more people are going to make an offer on it. So
that's right.
The fines are out there now. They're doing it. So far, it's worked. It's not that they're not enforcing it. It's that nobody's doing it. So we will see more over the next few months as more agents and places start to do it. So let's jump on to something else. There was some other news. So the San Francisco, this was on Bloomberg News. It says the Transamerica Tower sold to a New York City developer. Did you take a look at that at all? Did you see much about that?
Yeah, these sorts of things always amaze me because, I know you're an investor, I'm an investor. I'm always looking at the value add play. So like, oh, hey, what's let's get something that's kind of rough around the edges, that's maximize it. Somebody's not being maximized, right? And then I see people make these plays on really marquee properties, and they are paying an absolute premium for a marquee property. This is a property that they tried to sell. I think it was a 49% stake in it before, and they failed. And now, lo and behold, they get a pretty big number for a tower that a lot of people think is just butt ugly for starters. Kind of an eyesore at the time that they built it. They really had a backlash against buildings that tall. It was, sort of like a Space Needle kind of thing. And, and then here you see a guy pull down a really big price. Interesting that he and his partners have also paid big money, for example, for the Coca-Cola building in Manhattan. So he's accumulating these like marquee properties. And I do see it work for other people. Not my taste or style of investing, but it works.
Yeah. So the price is about $700 million. So if you've seen San Francisco or seen the skyline, it is the really tall, skinny pyramid, like the big triangle building. And I think a few years ago when I started looking at apartment complexes, and there's kind of different levels of assets that people bought, and there were people would buy assets for the cap rate. And they'd buy it for the return, and they'd buy these B and C class for a high cap rate. And then they'd buy these A and B class for a lower cap rate, but buildings that were nice and safe. Yeah. And then they have these other investments that people would buy because they wanted their name on that real estate. That maybe the cap rate was super low, like 2 or 3, but this was an asset that they could go show other people and go, hey, we own this. And it sounds, and maybe that's the play here. Maybe it's more of something that you could be proud of, less of a real estate investment and more of a big deal.
Yeah, I see that around, being right here in Los Angeles. I watched them do it on 3rd Street Promenade, where we just couldn't figure out how to make this particular property go at $27 million for a small piece on the 3rd Street Promenade. And lo and behold, they get an Apple store lease there, and they sold it at what was almost a zero cap, and you're just like, wow, how's that possible? But people want that marquee. They want that marquee piece of property.
Yeah, especially in those big places, places like California and New York, they might not get the cap rates, but those are places that are really known for that real estate appreciation. I met a doctor once that owned so much real estate in San Francisco, and he said every month he would lose money on it, and he'd pay a little bit extra money toward it. Then every few years he'd make $1 million to selling the thing. So,
absolutely, yeah. You see that appreciation that just doesn't stop in some of these marquee areas, top-notch areas.
Well, it really is interesting news. Next time I see the San Francisco skyline, I'm going to think about that.
Do the math. It's worth every single dollar. That's a title of a comment that I got on my certified listing agent course from Rebus University. It's from Bill Reeg. This is what Bill says. Bill says, looking to take your listing presentation to the next level? I've closed 100 appointments since I took Pat's certified listing agent course. 5 appointments, 5 new clients, 60 days. Boom. Do the math. It's worth every single dollar. Thanks, Bill. But listen, guys, I am offering this to you if you haven't already taken it, because so many brokers and teams make their agents take it before they do a single listing appointment. But if you haven't taken it, you can go to rebusuniversity.com and get it now. Now, here's the thing. For 30 days, what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you that course. I'm going to give you the buyer agent course, which teaches you how to close every single serious buyer that calls on the phone or emails. The certified team agent course is taught by Jeff Cohn, one of America's top agents, on how to build a team from 0 to hero to hundreds and hundreds of units every year, step by step. It's like a 12-hour course, plus 7 other courses. Yes, you heard that right. All for a measly $127 a month. If you were to go to Rebus University and buy these courses individually, it costs you over $10,000. But today, if you go to futureofrealestatetraining.com, that's futureofrealestatetraining.com, you'll learn what Bill Reeg did, which is how to close 100% of the listing appointments you go on. Quite impressive. And you'll learn all the other incredible details provided in the 11 5-star courses that are offered. Yeah, it's like all you can eat bazaar. You go in now and you pay $127 a month. If you can eat all 11 courses in 1 month, that's all you pay is $197. This is a bargain, guys. Get it now. Futureofrealestatetraining.com. Hey, Real Estate Rockstars, this is Pat Hyben, and before we jump back into today's content, I want to tell you about an extraordinary offer from an extraordinary company. I'm talking about My Outdesk. If you haven't heard of My Outdesk, basically they're a virtual assistant company, a VA company that specializes in virtual assistants for real estate agents. Yeah, I'm talking about transaction coordinators, marketing assistants. I'm talking about ISAs, inside sales agents that prospect thousands and thousands of seller leads and buyer lead follow-ups. I mean, these guys are trained in this stuff specifically. You're not using a company that doesn't know or understand real estate sales. 4 out of 5 of the top teams in the U.S. use My Outdesk for their virtual assistants. And because I know the owner, Daniel Ramsey, I've known him for over a decade, and I know how awesome and incredible this company is and how it saves agents thousands and thousands of dollars every single week and makes them thousands and thousands of more every single week. We're going to give you a $400 coupon off of your first month of a virtual assistant and give you a free book entitled Scaling Your Business with Virtual Professionals. So you can read it and look into it before you decide anything. It's called Scaling Your Business with Virtual Professionals. And you can get it real easy. All you got to do is text the word Hyben, H-I-B-A-N, to 31996. That's H-I-B-A-N to 31996. And download your free book, Scaling Your Business with Virtual Professionals. And don't forget to mention also that you get a $400 discount, which will give you a coupon for that when you download the book. Thank you, guys, and I hope you enjoy and make a ton of money using My Outdesk.
Back to an Inman article. So we've got Markets on Economy article says Americans are staying in their homes longer. So that was this week. It says homeowners, especially those in Connecticut, are staying in their homes longer and reaping the benefits of a more robust price appreciations. It said the length of stay in a home hit a new high in 2019. Homeowners who sold in the fourth quarter of 2019 owned their homes for an average of 8 years.
Wow. Yeah.
8 years. What do you think's causing that? What do what's behind it?
I look and there's just been periods of time where, the millennials are just moving more and more and people, you go all the way back into history and people were staying put a lot more. So we've had this trend for a very, very long time where, back in the day, people would sort of stay put in their hometown, and now people are moving. There's so much more mobility from city to city, people following jobs in different cities, people just deciding that they're going to move from, inner city to the suburbs or suburbs to inner city. There's so much more movement. And then to watch it kind of, the pendulum swing back the other direction, very interesting. It's interesting. I mean, what are your thoughts on the reason behind that?
Yeah, or why are they selling now, right? So I think, prices have been going up so far. Yep. And so people that have been holding their houses for 8 years, why are they finally deciding to sell? So I have to imagine that they're seeing this huge price appreciation, and they're starting to feel like maybe, their house, essentially, if they bought their house 8 years ago, their house has been appreciating since. It's 2012. So it's been going up, and every year it's that extra thing. And maybe now they're either feeling like, hey, it's a good time to cash out, or maybe they're feeling like the market's going to slow. Maybe it's a little bit of bet. I don't know. That seems like the price appreciation has to be a factor in what pushes them out to do that. Some Pat and I talked about maybe a couple months ago on a similar topic. Was at that time they were saying, property taxes was what was keeping people from buying it, or from selling their houses, because, in California, you could be locked in. If you bought that house for $300,000 and it's worth $1 million now, your property taxes are based on that $300,000 purchase price. They can't just increase it. Places like Texas, they increase it every year. Based on what they think it's worth. So, maybe in places like California, I could see people waiting because if they're just going to sell their house for $1 million and buy a new house for $1 million, their property tax goes way up. But this isn't saying, that it was, I guess California was some of it. So it's the top 10 U.S. markets. Mm-hmm. So Connecticut was all the top ones. It said Norwalk, New London, New Haven, Connecticut, Torrington, Connecticut, Springfield. But then down at the ones that still made the list in the top 10 were Santa Cruz, California, Santa Rosa, California, Thousand Oaks, California. So it could be a little bit about price appreciation, other stuff, but maybe people are just being more content in their house. But it's kind of baffling. I think it has a lot to do with the way the market is. I think maybe in 2012 it felt like everything was fixed. People had learned their lessons. They bought these new houses, and then they just saw appreciation from then. So why move?
And the other thing too, which I found a little bit confusing about that news is, they're staying in their home, but if they move, it doesn't mean they're cashing out. Are they then moving? Are they moving up? Are they getting something bigger? That's not cashing out. Are they move? It would be moving down or going into an apartment. It didn't really say where they were landing. So I had that question. And the other interesting thing too is, I know, again, we talked a little bit about another news story, and that was just that home ownership has reached this massive high. And I know you've got the stats on that. I think it was 65, just over 65.1% now is really a high in what, about 6 years? Is that right?
Yeah, so that's right. So that's a Bloomberg article. Homeownership rate in the U.S. climbs the highest since 2013. Nationwide rate was 65%, the biggest since the end of 2013. Second straight increase, climbing from 64 in the previous 3 months. That is wild. As homeownership goes up, because that's not what you actually hear about in the media, right? That's usually, I was surprised by that, because it seems like there's so much like bad news out there with real estate, or these companies owning houses and people are having to rent. But the homeownership rate is the highest since 2013.
Yeah, totally amazing. I think, there's some very obvious facts on that. One would think if you sort of put your hand over the number and said, hey, Paul, what do you think it is? I would have guessed less. I really would have, because as we get into a market, the price goes up and up and up. The affordability index gets out of whack, which is really one of the number one predictors in whether a market's overheated or not. And you're really out of whack with the price affordability index. So I take my hand off of that, and I'm like, whoa, wait a minute. The highest amount of home ownership since 2013. I'm like, okay, that's interesting. So the only thing I can attribute that to is it's got to be the low interest rates. And it is in the lower priced markets. It's the first time home buyers. It's people that haven't owned homes before or traditionally, and now getting into more home ownership. And it's just because, credit is getting a little bit easier, and money continues to be at an all-time low. And people look at they don't look at the price as much as they look at how much is it going to cost per month, which makes total sense.
Yeah, and we've been talking about mortgage rates a lot over the past few weeks, right? Because there has been a lot of news in that. So you talked a lot about that supply and demand, but as rates go down, affordability goes up. Somebody that could not afford a starter home last week can afford one this week. And so that has to be something that's impacting that. But counterintuitive, because I thought this whole, there's so many new people out there that are choosing to rent instead of buy. And there was so much in the news about, affordability and things like that. So I think overall that's good news. I think I'm a fan of home ownership. I'm a fan of investors too, right? But I'm a fan of people owning houses and people buying houses. And I think that was a pretty cool stat. I was surprised by it.
Yeah, very, very cool. And I totally agree with you. It's the first thing that I talk to people about when they're talking about investing. I talk to them about, do you own your own home? And if not, that's the place to start for sure.
Yep. Yeah, that's the first place to. Yeah. I waited way too long I had flipped so many houses before I actually lived in a house that I owned, and but I've gained way more in value, long-term value from having those ones that I live in too.
tribeofmillionaires.com. Guys, write that down. Rockstar Nation got a free special offer for you. Now, I've just written a book, and it's just been published. Co-authored it with David Osborne, who's been on this show multiple times. If you don't know David, he is one of the top execs at Keller Williams Real Estate, was personally mentored for the last 2 decades by Gary Keller himself, and he's in all kinds of businesses. His bio and explanation and everything is in this book. But anyways, David and I got together. We decided to write a book. We called it Tribe of Millionaires. And I guarantee you it's going to change your life. To find out more, just go to tribeofmillionaires.com. We're going to give it to you absolutely free. Only thing we ask in return is, of course, number one, you pay the shipping. Not a big deal. But number two, that you go on Amazon and write us a review. We're really looking to get an incredible amount of reviews. And because of that, we're giving this book away for free. Go to tribeofmillionaires.com today. Rockstar Nation, thanks so much for listening. Don't forget to stay to the end, where our guests will be offering a free gift. As you know, all of our guests offer a free gift, and all of these gifts can be found on the Agent Success Toolbox. You could find that by going to hibandigital.com/toolbox, or simply texting the word toolbox to 444-999. That's toolbox to 444-999. I am going to put today's free gift in today's show notes, but if you want all of them, including gifts from most of our guests that have come on the show, just go to the Agent Success Toolbox.
Yeah.
One of the funny things of the article, that was talking about, how 8 years is there. It also put some stats in here of there's a few cities that people lived in for much, much less. So it was like Oklahoma City, Oklahoma. Everybody that sold in the fourth quarter last year, average age that they owned the home was a year. Wow. Or Colorado Springs, Colorado. So all the people that sold in December this year, they, on average, they bought in December last year. So there's a handful of places where all of the sales in the fourth quarter were down to just months, which was just great. San Antonio, one and a half years of ownership. Grand Rapids, a year of ownership. So that's on the opposite end of the spectrum, and there's less of those places. But that stuff's really interesting to me too. I mean, if you were going to be an investor or an agent, what would you look at differently if you were saying, hey, there's only, people are selling after owning their house for only a year. What's that about?
Well, one thing, it's a little bigger picture thing, and that is, real estate is local. It really is. So one thing, when you look at all of these sort of big stats about money and cost of money and home ownership, length of home ownership is a perfect example. You really have to know your area. As a realtor, you've got to know your area, because it's like, I've heard a bunch of people say it's like a national weather forecast. You couldn't say like, oh, well, the weather today in the nation is X. It wouldn't make any sense. So it's really a local market. You've got to get in there. So in other words, Colorado Springs as opposed to New Haven, Connecticut, two totally different worlds in terms of how long people are holding houses. So you got to know your market. And a national statistic is just going to be meaningless when you look at those two things.
Yeah, know your market and look at it. Yeah, because we do some of that big picture news, but it's also fun to see those stats that are the total opposite, just to remind us that, hey, this could be happening in 90% of the country, but don't go invest over here just because it's doing that way over there. Don't do it that way. So great advice to all the agents out there to stay local. Just a couple more things we were going to talk about today that were pretty interesting. We've been talking about iBuyers and instant offers and so much over the past few months. It seems like it is all over the news. And Inman, did you see that article? Berkshire Hathaway Home Services now with their own instant offer option.
Yeah, instant offer, and one that was very cool and interesting was the offer lock, right? You remember that? The offer lock is where, so obviously we know what an instant offer is. They're going to say, hey, here's your offer. We'll close in 14 days, done deal, period. But the offer lock is they give you a price, and you have a certain amount of time. And I think it was 100. Do you have that stat?
150 days. Like this is the first time I've seen this.
Wow. So you give you 150 days. So like, hey, we'll give you this price and go ahead, run around, shop it around. And 100, that price is good for 150 days. So really, interesting for sure.
Yeah. And I think the way that it reads, it says there is a quick buy lock option, which after they give them the offer, it'll give sellers time to try to sell the home for a better price if they want for 150 days. But if they can't, it lets them fall back on the initial offer. Like that is crazy. So somebody says, hey, I'll give you $150,000 for your house. And you say, I'm going to try to list it for a little while first. And then 4 months later, you could say, because that happens every time we try to sell a house. As an agent, there's always that time you're like, oh, we should have accepted that first offer. Now it's too late and we're stale. And that's like going, no, you could actually 4 months later come back and say, hey, we changed our mind. We do want to take the offer. That will totally, I want to learn more about the fine details of that, because that totally sets their offer deal apart from any of the ones I've seen so far.
Correct. And it's going to give an advantage to that firm. There's no question. I always look at it and go, how are they going to, how does this make sense financially? And sometimes it's just to get the business advantage.
Yeah. There's so much real estate software, real estate technology, different things out there. I mean, now when you go on Zillow, there is way more about let us try to buy your house than there is real estate info. I don't know how often you check that site out, but it has been changing so much over the past few months.
Yeah.
So the last article I wanted to talk about maybe ties a lot of that stuff together. So it was at the end of last month on Inman, says big money and MLS disruption are here to stay. Experts said Friday that the multiple listing service landscape is likely to see continued technology innovation as well as consolidation in the future. What do you think about that? Did you see that article?
Yeah. And the interesting thing there is it's just over time we see consolidation, so that the little MLSs cannot compete because they don't have the money and the staff and the technology to compete against something, even, a big MLS, let alone Zillow. I mean, I just had, in one of the recent interviews that I did, I talked to, it was Jeffrey Saad that was talking about that and just said, hey, you know what, even, it doesn't matter. Our MLS is great. We've got a giant MLS. They do, decent job, but we go to Zillow and check out the latest news, on pricing and what's for sale, and they're updating so much faster. So yeah, I do think the push is going to be for and really better service, right? Service has got to be better for the MLS.
And really in my mind, I think it only helps the consumer. It only helps everybody. I live in Austin, and there's a few of these areas near Austin where there could be 3 different MLSs for one city, right? And people go, oh no, I have my. If they list your house, they're like, oh, it's only on one of the MLSs instead. And they go, well, my membership is over here. I don't pay for all 3 memberships. So it might not be on this guy's site or this guy's site, but it usually is on Zillow or Redfin or one of those other ones. And so by trying to keep them separate, they're actually kind of hurting the consumer or hurting their own MLS. And with all the technology and innovation out there, to me, it's like, I feel like it'll be better for everybody if more of them consolidate, team up, share that data, because because the sites that are doing that, the sites that are really boosting that technology, the Zillows of the world, they are taking away from those local MLSs because they were the ones that said, let's consolidate, let's share all the information instead of keeping it secret. I mean, it's always baffling to me when people are like, no, they see a for sale sign in the yard and they'll call me and go, well, it's not in the MLS, that we're seeing. It's like, well, which MLS are you looking at? That's crazy. You shouldn't have to do that.
Yeah. That's a perfect, you use a perfect example for Austin, which is, it's a nice sized city. However, 3 MLSs is crazy. And what I think about in those instances is you've got these sort of territorial dinosaurs just hanging onto their turf, and they don't care. They're able to hang on to their little piece of the pie, and they'll sort of ride it down into the ground. And I'm going to tell you, that's where it's going, unless they really innovate and open their doors and consolidate.
Yeah. It was talking, some of the differences it talked about is like they have it, it's challenging to be an MLS because they have to cater to both the 10-person shop, but also massive companies like Keller Williams. And so talk about in other parts of business, we're like, who's our avatar? Who's our ideal client? Who's our ideal customer? Who am I really meant to serve? But you can't have anything more dramatic than that of the one person brokerage compared to a whole brokerage of hundreds of agents. How many agents are in your office?
Oh, well, my office is combined of 3,000 agents, but that's over 16 offices. But yeah, really huge. Like our Beverly Hills office has more than 300.
Right. That is freaking incredible. That's why one of the reasons I love doing the news with you, because you know so much about what's going on in real estate just from that. But I mean, that alone, right, is the challenge that different MLSs have when it's like the type of customer and client they want to cater for, because a big office like yours is capable of building their own front-faced, website that ties into the multiple MLSs that they have to. And so it just makes innovation. I'm excited to see what continues to play out. There's a lot of people that are, non-MLS companies that are now launching software that agents are choosing to kind of use instead or launch inside MLSs. I think this year we're just gonna see a lot more of that.
Yeah, and that's where you really have something that people refer to as a category king. I mean, you've got to really own that space, and being second, third, fourth place in an area like that, you want to be the go-to. You want to have all the information. The folks that are in their little corner hoarding the information, they're just gonna die out, no question.
Yeah, I totally agree, man. Well, Paul, that was the state of the market. That was the news I wanted to talk to you about. This week. I'm sure we'll be back next week. And for Real Estate Rockstars out there, make sure to go check out our YouTube page. Come find us. Our podcast, hibandigital.com. You'll see links over to our other stuff. Check us out at RE Rockstars on Instagram, Real Estate Rockstars on YouTube. You can find Paul on Instagram. Paul, what's your Instagram handle?
It's Paul Mark, M-A-R-K, Morris, M-O-R-R-I-S. So Paul Mark Morris.
And come find me over there too. So it's my whole last name. You just start typing it, A-A-R-O-N, Aaron Muchastegi. When you start that last name, it'll autofill. You'll find it. You'll see my real estate tips in there. You'll see links to the best podcasts that we do and a lot of the other things out there. But be sure to continue to check us out and listen to Paul's live interviews that he did last week and that's publishing this coming Friday. Some superstar agents on there. A lot of fun, and you get to see more stuff that we're doing.
Yeah, we've got Tammy Pardee, and she's such a rock star. She does $600 million in real estate a year. One of the top teams in the whole United States. Definitely top team in California. So to hear her just sort of tell her philosophy, how she does things, it's fascinating.
Yeah. And that one was another one of those live interviews with the camera crews there, just to try to, create an even higher value for, the YouTube page and the interview. So check it out. Paul, awesome chatting with you, man. And I'll catch you again next week.
Okay. Thanks a lot.
Rockstar Nation, thank you for listening to Real Estate Rockstars. Listen, I need a favor. If you find this free content helpful, if you find our downloadable items from each guest helpful, please, I need you to pull out your pointing finger. Yes, the one finger that points at people, and hit subscribe. Yes, subscribe. The more subscribers we get, the better we look in the ratings, and the easier it is to get guests like Robert Kiyosaki, Barbara Corcoran, all the players that are on $1 million listing in the different cities. All that stuff makes it easier the more subscribers we get, so please subscribe. And listen, there's a lot of places you can leave comments. There's a lot of places you can like. We're on Facebook. We have an Instagram page. Instagram page is I am Pat Hyben. The Facebook is Real Estate Rockstars Radio. Feel free to leave us comments there. The most popular form of commenting seems to happen on YouTube. Yes, for whatever reason, it's a very open environment. So just go to YouTube and go to Real Estate Rockstars Radio. Leave us comments there. Some of them we will read on the show. We love your feedback. So thanks, guys, and I hope you are having a great day. Oh, and also, listen, if you're going to subscribe and you haven't already left a review on iTunes, please do that too. Have a great day, and thanks so much, Rockstar Nation. I really appreciate you.